Christianity is one of the very interesting religion. We have one common ground, which is the Bible. We've got one book of life that is uniting us, which is the Word of God. What is interesting is that the same Bible is interpreted by different pastors, apostles, bishops, scholars, anyone, believers, anyone you want to say. As a result, we've got multiple and different doctrines as believers. The truth of the matter is Christianity and uNkulunkulu yedwa, not Jesus mkhulu afuthi yedwa. So we started the Power Hour, not because we wanted to create a division, but we wanted to encourage engagement for people to sit in the one platform and discuss. I think this is how we should worship God, and I think this is how we should be living as Christians. Ekugcineni is to show the world ukuthi in as much as we've got multiple doctrines or different doctrines, that is why sometimes we turn stones and it's be uncomfortable. At the end of the day, you see us having tea together because what is grounding us is Christ.
Welcome to Power Hour. Wherever you're tuning from. Let's start with once again. We welcome those who are tuning in for the first time. My followers age for our guests la khona ebesasiqhubeka sikhuluma khona ngeindaba zikaNkulunkulu zoNkulunkulu abangasiwa noNkulunkulu abahlukahlukene. Namhlanje ke siqala itopic yethu entsha ikhona inceke kaNkulunkulu esinayo namhlanje. I want to remind you before we introduce my co-host as well as our guest, I want to remind you ukuthi ishow yabazalwane lenzwa abazalwane yenzela abazalwane. Konke sikhulumayo kwazo Christ wisisekelo nje sikhulumayo. And inhloso ukufundisana yo inhloso ukulimaza noma ukuxova kodwa inhloso ukuthi sifundisane sithole more information. So I invite you to sit back and relax as we turn stones. Uphendule uphawule ujikjela manje kodwa ngenhlonipho. So ke enjoy the show. Itopic yethu ke namhlanje sikhuluma ngayo. Sikhuluma ngendaba yama Soulties. Guest yethu ke siqala nayo le ndaba. So ke siyibuka le ndaba ama Soulties ekhale ukukhuluma ngayo kwamanye amasonto nezinye ingcebo sikhuluma ngazo ku Facebook. Sinengcebo kaNkulunkulu ezoveza uvo lwayo namhlanje. Asimukele ke umlingani wami la esibambisene naye umnumzane uGerard Thabethe. Yaphila kahle?
Hayi yaphila futhi ambalithaba.
Number 1 kahle la.
Hayi. Siyabonga kakhulu.
Hola.
Siyabikela nakwabukeli. Trusting God to have a wonderful time.
Yeah.
Kule topic hectic kangaka. No, but we are trusting God which will have a wonderful time.
I get very siphendula nawe so besiphendula naye umfowethu Thabethe. So ke bese ke samukele our guest mhlonishwa umprofeti Mathabela no bishop Mathabela. We have a lawyer, Moses Timothy. Asibingelele mngani wami, welcome to Power Hour.
Siyabonga kakhulu sibasibingelele bonke abalaleli nababukeli be Power Hour ngibuyele nabo eThabethe. Ayikumnandi ukuba la. Bathi ngeCovid.
Yes.
Angeke thina sihlalele ukunikelela enye indoda.
Yeah.
Akiwe emsebenzini.
Yeah.
Eyisamangala ukuthi thina esibiziwe.
Senze
njani ngoba ngazi ukuthi phela asifundanga.
Yeah,
manje sesifundile so.
Yeah.
Ungafuna umfundisi zokubopha.
Ngiyakuzwa. Ithatha ukifakeli kala lo mfayitshela.
Noma la ngikufaka ejele. Omnye wangibuza wathi manje bishop wenze njani? If I hire you as an attorney and ubopha umzalwane wakhe esontweni.
Ubopha umzalwane.
No, kuhlukene phakathi.
Yeah,
mangise office lo mmeli ngummeli mangise office lo mfundisi.
So unankinga ukubopha ikolo wena mase kusetshenzwa ngasechurch.
You know, if I'm working as a counselor, I'm a counselor.
Yeah.
If I'm working as a bishop, I'm a bishop.
Yeah.
Yeah. uNkulunkulu ukhetha akufuna ukuthi izinto ihlanganise.
Hayi, sazobe sikhuluma ke ngilana. Bishop Mathabela, asihlale phezulu kwayo le ndaba.
Yeah.
Soulties. Kade lethu sasibalekela isikhathi sokuthi sikhulume manje Powerhour le will leave no stone unturned.
Yes.
Asiqale ngokuthi yini ama Soulties.
I think the word is definitive on itself.
Yeah.
Soul,
Yeah.
tie.
Yeah.
Umphefumulo, boshiwe.
Yeah.
So soul tie is basically that.
Yeah.
Ukuthi umphefumulo womunye umuntu ubumbane nomphefumulo womunye umuntu or abanye abantu. Because it's possible to have a soul tie with one person, but generally people have a soul tie with more than one person, and so that also affects ukuthi umuntu uphila kanjani, usebenza kanjani. A soul tie wesiba can either be good or bad. It's not necessarily that a soul tie is bad. Ukuthi nje phela generally in church we like to overemphasize one aspect. You know, ikakhulu inkonzo zethu, we're going to emphasize breaking a generational curse.
Yeah.
But we will not teach about accepting a generational blessing that is family centered. But we will talk to you about
Generational curse.
a generational curse. So we tend to emphasize one of the other. So even in soul ties, there are bad soul ties and there are good soul ties.
So Bishop Mathabela, what you are saying basically, soul ties are into a corner. It's not just a myth, and it's not just an overreaction. Ngendlela esisuke sizwa ngayo abantu besatshiswa ematendeni kushunyayelwa into ekhona.
No, it's all tie into corner. It's all tie into corner, and I think from biblical times, there are various things ezenza ukuthi umuntu aqine ane soul tie. Sometimes it's just an attraction of something. Sometimes it's someone being overwhelmed by somebody else's gift, and then there's a soul tie. The important thing about soul ties is ukuthi they create a space or an avenue for exchange. Uma uthi exchange of what? Depending which soul ties. Soul ties are different. Maybe I can generally classify them to 4 different soul ties.
Okay.
There's a physical soul tie, which mostly we talk about, which comes through sex. That's a physical soul tie. But now you need to understand that there are things that begin physical and end up spiritual, and there are things that begin spiritual and end up physical. So, but the first level is a soul tie that is created by sexual intercourse. There's the physical soul tie. Then you have emotional soul ties. And then you have spiritual soul ties. And then you have maybe what we call social soul ties. So all these are different and they operate differently. But someone can be tied down.
Umuntu mayithi sexual soul tie isebenza kanjani? Ngoba khona ohlele ekhaya ohlale ezokhuluma nge-soul tie. If it's a soul tie created by sex.
Let me start somewhere, particularly kuleyo nto. uNkulunkulu ubumba umuntu from the ground. Wamakha umzimba womuntu ngenhlabathi.
Yeah.
And then he breathed
umoya
wakhe into the body.
Yeah.
That lump of soil.
Yeah.
And then man became a living soul.
Yes.
Now if you think of this, it's not like umuntu ufana nencwadi engene envelope. The envelope is the body. The person is the letter. It's not like that. It was one thing. The breathing of God into the body made a living soul, a new creature. Kwaba umphefumulo ophilayo. So umphefumulo ophilayo was a combination of what he formed and what he breathed out. Okay.
Right.
So that's a person's soul.
Yeah.
Now, without mhlawumbe ukunaba kakhulu, maybe on another different theology of what is the soul. We teach that you are spirit, you have a soul, and you live in a body. umoya unomphefumulo ophila emzimbeni. But ngifuna ukuveza la ekuthenini when you are dealing with ukuhlangana nabantu, physical interaction, sexual lokukhuluma ngakho becomes the first doorway. It is one of the quickest way to create soul ties. For example, 1 Corinthians, I think chapter 6, kukhulunywa ukuthi if a person sleeps with a prostitute, and then it says you become one flesh. So the Bible sees two entities before the sexual encounter. And after the sexual encounter, or the process of the sexual encounter, now produces similarity or a singular individual. So you are now one with this person. So you can ask yourself, short lento iglue, because we're no muntu, but mabalalana kwase kuba umuntu oyedwa. Lithi Bible so umuntu oyedwa loyo.
Yeah.
Uyabona ukuthi then there is something that is very important and powerful about it. In fact, bazongisiza abafundi science. During lezi zinto ze sexual intercourse, a human being will release certain fluids that make the person bond to the partner. So bekulalwana kodwa sekukhona ulubumbano olwenzekile between labantu abalelene. Yazi ukuthi let me say something maybe that's little controversial. Yabona abantu abake babambana obake balala ndawonye.
Yeah.
Indlela ababukana ngayo iyenye. And the way they relate to each other is different. One way or another, as broadly as it may seem. But that's the first level of a soul tie. Walala nomuntu nhlangene. In fact, lento yokulala namuntu omunye is so serious ukuthi uma ngabe umuntu angayidilishi nayo lento angashada nomunye umuntu, you are just merely adding.
In fact, that was going to be my question. Ukuthi umuntu osele namantombazana u27.
Yeah.
Umuphi? 27.
Yeah, angithi a soul tie does not necessarily happen
everyone in one person.
Yeah, it's not like
just to add on that,
yes.
uJesu uyakhuluma ngendaba yokuthi I think it was a question that was raised to him.
Yes.
Kubuzwa ukuthi kwenzeka njani ke ukuthi kade abantu beshadile.
Yes.
Omunye washona bekhuluma indaba ye divorce lapho.
Yeah.
Bese kuyabuza ukuthi uzolamaniswa nobani noma who are they going to be tied to? Should it be that omunye uyashona and then athathe omunye kanjalo? I want to because biblically you find khulunywa ngoDavid abantu abebe nesithembu had concubines
1,000 Soulties.
Yeah.
Manje how do we explain that?
Okay, good question. Kuhlukanise lento. One, maybe let me answer the first one. Babuza uJesu ukuthi at resurrection whose wife yeah, and then Jesus answers says no, you don't understand. In resurrection there will be no giving to marriage and giving to marriage, because Jesus is now bringing something new. And what is he saying? He's saying in the next life you will have a new body.
Okay.
So immediately the highlight is that ngekulalwe phambili.
And the soul tie futhi iphelela la.
Izophelela la.
Oh, okay.
Izophelela la. Ngeke uyithathe uye nayo ngani. But let me answer the question. And this may be slightly different ngokuthi umuntu ubuka kanjani. Umuntu mangabelala nabantu abaningi, they have multiple soul ties, which affects them both negatively and sometimes positively, depending what type of soul tie it is. You are easily sure. For example, bantu abashadile, they have got a soul tie. Uyabona abanye, you know, symptoms of a soul tie. Let me make an example. Symptoms of a soul tie ngapho ukuthi uyazi ukuthi ningaxabana umuntu omunye ufice ukuthi uabusive. Ubone ukuthi uyazi ukuthi lo sisi noma lo bhuti ayikho into ayidlalela. Kodwa uzohamba 2 weeks aphinde aphindele nalo muntu. Unga-understand ukuthi yini lento ebuyisa lo muntu kuyena.
The soul tie.
Is the soul tie, because i soul tie yenza ukuthi uzizwe ungaphelele ngaphandle kwalowa muntu. 2 ikwenza ukuthi umfise lowa muntu. Kuba nento engathi yakudonsela kuyena. So umuntu nje ngendlela thine noma ngendlela engikholwa ngayo. Umuntu mayephenduka uyadinga ukuthi siyibreak lento. Ngoba iyona engamphindisela emuva. Uyayizwa leyo nto. Because kukhona into eyenzekile. Siyaye siyale lapha umuntu mephenduka sithi yabo nje usuphendukile usukholiwe. Awusamanje uvela usuku ujike uye kuba kwengane yokumama ngane noma kanjani.
Yeah.
Ngoba uzohamba uyikhola lapho bese usowenze into unga understand ukuthi kwenzeke kanti ukuthi kukhona into ekhona engakanqunywa kwena. Imagine ukuthi uma umzali ezala ingane iphuma inethumbu ehlanganise ingane nomzali sibiza nge-umbilical cord. But for the child to gain some form of independence kumele ukuthi inqunywe le umbilical cord kuze lengane izoqala ibe ne-independence. If you understand that, then you will understand how a soul tie would work. So I will say many people today, they struggle and have lots of problems because of a sexual soul tie. You open up. Let me make a good example. If a soul tie is not broken, Tabete, it's like I call you on a phone and you accept the phone and you connect. And then I stop talking to you, but I didn't drop the call. Whatever's happening on your side will project on my side. And whatever's happening on my side will project on your side.
Unless the call is
until the call is dropped. Even if we are no longer talking, but the call is still active. I'm just trying to make a hypothesis of understanding. When a soul tie is not broken, a person continues to have access to that person's life and that person's life to this person's life. So then it gets more serious.
Mathabela. I-soul tie yocansi
Yes.
ingenza ukuthi uma uGerard elale nevolunteer
Yeah.
kwase kuba ne-tie between yena nevolunteer. Le soul tie ingantshontsha indaba kaGerard nje benemali kangaka.
Kunjalo. Because what you need to understand is that sex is a spiritual doorway. Sex is very spiritual than physical. It's a physical activity that has spiritual consequences. So kuyenzeka ukuthi uyazi khona abantu ofica ukuthi umuntu wayengawuthandi ngisho ukuthanda utshwala. Kodwa walala nomuntu othanda utshwala.
Uthathe entombeni.
Ya avelome. Ubathi lo muntu wasuba nenkinga angayazi ukuthi yini. Uyabona mangabe nje mhlawumbe ukhule ekhaya la kungaphuzwa khona kubhenywa khona. And all of a sudden you have these edges. So ngathi ufuna ngathi ngayaphuza ngayabhema ngabe izinto ongakayijwayele.
So these soul ties actually impact they impact character yakho nezinto ozithandayo ama habits akho.
They impact your character because they impact your spirituality.
Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Then ushuthi uma ngase ngizosebenzisa yena umfowethu Tabete.
Yeah.
uGerard uthi mangasala le ntombazane engasinisiwe.
Yeah.
Ngamthola uJesu la ucansini koGerard.
No.
Jesu.
No, that is salvation comes with that's something different. Gerard can get a spirit that lives in the girl, but Jesus is not transferred like that.
Bishop,
do you understand?
Bishop ngiyakuzwa but why do we always have this portrayal of ukuthi the negative can be transferred but not the other way around?
The good.
The positive can't be transferred. I want to put it this way for you.
In other words, uthi uGerard uma umjinja elala nentombazane.
Yeah.
Ubrothers ehluphekele.
Yeah.
Ebese naye nodadewethu ocebile.
Yeah.
Ngenzeka ubrothers afika uthatha lapha la mangabe kwenzeka exchange yocansi. Ubrothers ayibona naye sihamba ngeMercedes.
Beautiful. You know what? Beautiful question, but let me answer the questions.
Yeah.
You know what is painful in life is that destructive things are easier than constructive things. Uma ngisho njalo, even in the spirit world, ukwamukela umoya omubi noma umoya ongcolile bulula nokwamukela umoya omuhle. But let me go a little bit deeper. Uma ngabe uGerard abe nebhadi
yeah
wokuhlangana nentombazana eze specifically ne-intention
of stealing from him.
yokuthatha kuyena. Masikhuluma ukuthatha kuyena, let's say unenhlahla emali, uyaphumelela ngemali.
Yeah.
Intombazana izizolala naye with the intention yokuthi ifuna ukudonsa lenceba. This is how many rituals happen ezweni lobumnyama lokuthatha izinto zabantu. Alale nomuntu iphele inhlanhla. Alale nomuntu kusala ibhadi. Phuma inhlanhla yakho. There are spiritual transactions that can happen through this avenue.
Mfundisi Mathax, lethi ngehlala lo muntu osinsile.
Let me ask you a simple question, and this may be painful. Ngenza kube nzima lokho. Umuntu osindisiwe uyangena enengozini yemoto. Umuntu osindisiwe uyangena enesibhedlela.
Uyangena.
Umuntu osindisiwe kuyenzeka afe amncane.
Yeah, ngiyenzeka.
Yes. But Christ took our infirmities. So the next question you want to ask yourself is not umuntu osindisiwe kungam-affecta yini. Is mhlambe ufuna sibheke ukuthi yini umuntu osindisiwe into angayenza athi kungam-affect. Yes. Umuntu osindisiwe angalimazeka kakhulu.
Bishop Mathax.
Yeah.
Spirit filled.
Yeah.
Umntwana kaNkulunkulu.
Umntwana kaNkulunkulu spirit filled.
Ahlangane nentombi ivelisa ke yonke inzebo yakhe salelo ufuduza.
Nokunje mfundisi yini evimbayo ukuthi a spirit filled Christian kube ukuthi yena spirit sakhe
siyongena ku
isona esitransfereka kulo ngali.
Uyazi ukuthi this is what okay angifuna ungena kakhulu ngibhekele but it's a good question. Ngifuna ukuzama ukuthi ngingajuli ngento engeke ifike ku-answer la. Angikubekisele kanje. Into ekumzalwane generally isibusiso. Yini isibusiso? It's an empowerment to succeed. Shothi unikezwe amandla akamoya okwenza ukuthi noma yini into ayenzayo iphumelele. Uyayizwa leyo nto. Isibusiso lesi sikuyena. And nayo into engiyicondile. Bese sengiyandlula ngithi kuwena. Ukhuluma ngesibusiso ukhuluma ngento oyithola by obedience. Most blessings they are by obedience. Bese kuba khona izinto ezithi yizipho uNkulunkulu ayinikeza wena. You are born with it. You don't receive it from God. Blessings can be based on obedience. Khuluma from a biblical perspective. Bese kuba khona nje inhlahla zakho nje. Yabona khona amakhaya nje zonke ingane zakhona ziyafunda. Ayikho into ongayenza. Inhlahla yakule ekhaya. Njengakithi ngithi akekho umuntu ongafundile. Babazala su13 bashona abanye abafowethu kodwa esiphila su10. Wonke umuntu kithi unama degree mhlamba ayi2. Incwadi yafundeka. It's a generational blessing that comes from the family. Odadewethu abangakholwa bayapasa. Noma uyakholwa baba into yasekhaya. But if you live long enough you will discover ukuthi yenzeka ukuthi ingcondo yomunye umuntu ithwebuleke ngobuthakathi obuthize. Umuntu kade ephiwe kuphele abe isidididi nje. So what I want to bring to light ukuthi ngizama ukuthi ngashonile kakhulu. Ngifuna ukubuya on this subject. Into engifuna ukuthi understand ukuthi kufuna sisibuza imibuzo ukuthi yini izwe lobumnyama likuthande kangaka ukulala to jeopardize the life of many women. Umama kaLemuel uyamiyala uthi Lemuel mfana wami unganikeza amandla akho kwabesifazane. Lemuel my son, do not give your strength to woman. Ebese khuluma ngokuthi strong drink is not for kings. What is it that you are saying? Bekathini bethi unganikezi abantu besifazane imali. Why is he saying do not give women your strength? It's because he knew ukuthi ukulala nomuntu kuba khona i-exchange. Asengikubekisele kanje. Uma iBhayibheli lithi umuntu olala nomunye baba nyamanye. It's more like you were two containers and you become one container. Let's say when uzane Coke, udlamini uzane Fanta. I'm trying to make an illustration. Sibe kujeke la. wena ufake 2 liter wakho wecoke noma ilitha yecoke naye afake ilitha yeFanta bese siyikhipha lento siyifaka eglassini yebo isekhona iFanta kodwa kusasiyiFanta yebo isekhona icoke kodwa kusasiyicoke. It is now a mixture of something else. The problem of not dealing with Soulties is that people feel they still have what they had, but they don't have exactly what they had. They have something tainted from what they had. So while umuntu angabona izithelo ezithile kodwa so kuyabe namabhada angawazi ukuthi avelaphi. Ingakho yabona lento yokuthi uNkulunkulu asiyale ngokuthi hlalani ngensizwa noma hlalani ngentombi. It's not so much about ngoba nizosha esihogweni. Yes, there can be another issue. But more importantly, it is the danger that it presents. How does it affect you spiritually? Uyabona ngekathi nilele nibanyamanye okushothi imimoya elanga kimi iyangena ngakwena. Imimoya engakwena iyangena. Khona abantu nje asebalahlekelwa imisebenzi ba impilo yangaqhubeka ngemuntu njalo la naye. They were having fun, but they discovered that sex is not an avenue to have fun. So things will happen. Ngisakhuluma about this just first level. It's just that ukulala is the most common thing of creating soul ties. And unfortunately, ngiphendula lo mbuzo obuzayo, destructive things just move quicker than constructive things.
So is it absolutely impossible for ukuthi kube a deposit of something positive instead of the negative?
I wouldn't say so. Because this might be slightly controversial in a church circle. I wouldn't say so. But iyo into eyenza ukuthi kungasuka umfana lale ntombazana ayithatha inhlanhla yentombazana. Kungasika intombazana ilale nomfana ayithatha inhlanhla yomfana. That's a spiritual withdrawal from one person into another person. So kuthathwa into enhle. So there is a transfer of something good from one person to the other. You see, what is more important?
But thinking am I transfer of Salome feel?
Yeah, uyalimala because phela there's been a withdrawal in your life.
But uNkulunkulu kuphi litshotshwa izinto ezibekwe kumina?
Ukhona. You know your question, I mean, it's like asking umusathana antshotshwa amagunya kaAdam uNkulunkulu wayekuphi? uNkulunkulu wayekhona. Amagunya onke uNkulunkulu lamhlabeni kwakuAdam. But uAdam wavumela ukuthi uSathane enze njani? Athathe izinto zakhe. There was a certain transfer. And that transfer that happened caused Adam to struggle. Even God came and said, Adam, you've done this thing. He said, by the sweat of your brow you will eat. Now, because there was a spiritual transaction that happened between Adam and the snake. There was a transfer of something good, authority. Adam was the God of this world. Now, Satan is the God of this world. I told you that, yes. Yeah. You see, I said soul ties happen in 4 different ways, or they are different. There is a physical soul tie, which is the most common. Then it may lead to the others.
It was the first one.
And then there is Nzongena. Yes, Nzongena. No, it's a good question. Nzongena for now. And then there is a emotional soul tie. Then there is a spiritual soul tie. And then there is a social soul tie. The spiritual soul tie is the most significant because everything leads to the spiritual soul tie.
Yeah.
A soul tie can happen by covenants. When 2 people covenant, they create a soul tie. They agree to transfer some things. Look at 1 Samuel 18, verse 1. When David had finished speaking, the soul of Jonathan was knit to David. Every time there's a soul tie, there'll be an exchange. And Jonathan took his shield, he took his sword, his rope. What made Jonathan, the heir to the throne of Saul, he gave to David.
So there was a soul tie between David and
Jonathan. Yes.
So this
That
does not go with.
Isn't it amazing that the soul tie was so strong that even though Jonathan was heir to the throne of David, he was pleased to see David sit on the throne. You don't hear Jonathan complain. Yet it should have been his inheritance.
So Jonathan not David was deep, very deep.
It was very deep. It was such a strong. I said to you, there's a negative soul tie and there's a positive soul tie.
Yeah.
You know, and soul ties can be so supreme. Ukuthi umuntu abantu kade bengahlobene bahlobane babe enye into. Angibekise nje besikhuluma about the level of soul tie through sex. Yeah. Married people have a soul tie together.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, when your sister is married, she will love her husband more than you. Nina nashelana ibele nahlupheka ndawonye nakhula ndawonye. But the soul tie is so strong that she will choose a husband whom she met amdala over you. Because of the soul tie. A soul tie creates an exchange. And when there are covenants, for example, sithi sizama ukumsiza to deliver the person of the soul tie, we will require the person to honestly search themselves and prepare themselves to break these covenants. First, it can be physical covenants. Second, it can be spiritual covenants. You know words, Uti John chapter 6, verse 63, this is Jesus talking. Yeah. He says, the words that I speak, they are spirit and they are life. Which means words are spiritual containers. Amazwi, inkamba zakamoya. So words will either carry a good spirit or they will carry a bad spirit. Noma umuntu uyaqalekiswa kuphuma amazwi, but they are followed by a bad spirit. So when wena uzosuka uthi kakhulu nje bantu uma besindiswa, we want them to go through a process of deliverance. Kuze lo muntu azokwazi ukukholwa ngendlela eqondile. Ngoba nje kusindiswa usuneyifungo ozenzile, wafungela uThembe wathi indlela engikuthanda ngayo mengingashadi nawe angimfuni omunye umuntu. Lesthembiso is still hanging in the air.
Yeah.
Following you. And it must be broken.
Yeah.
Because now there's a soul tie that has happened by words. You have to break it. A process of deliverance, that means later. But a process of deliverance of breaking a soul tie. Maybe I'll come to that later. How effectively will you break a soul tie? Because that's where it's going. But there is a part, yes.
Yeah, a bond, a soul tie. What was it? Was it sexual? Was it spiritual?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't sexual. It was more spiritual, because it's a form of agreement. It's a form of agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas no, this would be too controversial for.
No. No,
yeah, okay. Okay, there are certain precepts that we teach in the Christian faith, which more importantly help us go to umuntu akholwa sengikubekisele nje. Le concept yamakholwa yokuthi sewumakoti kaJesu has that same connotation of some form of one being submissive to the other.
Yeah.
It brings the picture. There's a soul tie that happens between us and Christ. Yeah. That's the picture it brings. That siyaphuma kuloku esasiyikho, siyaphuma ukuba bakithi sesibakubo.
Yeah.
The same way uMamdlamini
aphuma ngayo ekhwenda.
Ngisho bembuza akasabizi isibongo sakhe.
Yeah.
Usubize sakho. So there are certain processes that we go through. Yabona nje umuntu umephenduka besimvumisa izono. There was something that we used to do kudala masontweni. I don't want to talk about the theology of it. But umuntu make yobhabhathiswa kudala. I'm just pulling this. I'm not saying it's a doctrine.
Yeah.
Why uthi uma ufaka emanzini uthi wesivume zonke izono zakho zaziyo ungakangena emanzini. It's not necessarily.
But that was not scriptural.
Yeah. It's not doctrinal. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what it did do, it helped the person to consciously break any form of covenants that went with it.
It humiliated Papa, that's why Nalo Workshow,
Yeah.
mostly it humiliates abantu.
No, it's true what you're saying. And I'm not saying that it was good.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah, the point that I want to drive to is that when you attend certain things, they help you be free. They help you. You know, there's something, maybe this is slightly off the topic. There's something Umam Fundiswami taught me when I was growing up. Skombos, uma ngabe ufuna ukuphila impilo engcwele. Kodwa makuphela usuku uthatha iphepha. Uyikhumbule zonke izono zakho ozenzile. Uthi yebo uma ngabe uguqa phansi uthi Nkosi ngicela ungithethelele ukuthi ngonile namhlanje. uNkulunkulu uzokuthethelela. Uthi kodwa uma uzibhala phansi lezono zakho kuzokuhlupha kusasa uma uzobhala isono osibhale ngayizolo. Ukuthi izolo bengiqolisa ukuthi njontshile namhlanje ngiqolisa njontshile. What she was saying was that the consciousness of looking at the thing helps you to be free, and that is where I'm going.
So in other words, this confession or this looking at sins was sort of a breaker.
It was sort of a breaker because you see what it does. It allows you to confront a thing. Little Bible, good John chapter 1, verses 9 to 10, I think. So with the heart man believes unto righteousness. With the mouth, person confesses unto salvation. You see that what the mouth is saying is moving the person. When the person believes, they move to a position of righteousness. Righteousness, you agree with God's perspective on things.
You're in right standing with God.
Yes, you are in right standing with God.
Yeah.
Right standing with God means you are in agreement. You and God have a consensus of mind. Ukuthi ngiyilokhu yena uyilokhu lethelo bese uma usuvuma ngomlomo wakho sekuyavela ke insindiso. Usuvela ufelwe vele. Ubuvela ufelwe ungakavumi. Angazi umyayizela. Ubuvela uthethelelwe ungakavumi. uJesu wafela zonke izono zabantu. Kodwa khona umuntu othi ngisindisiwe khona ongakasindisi kodwa yonke into ikhokhela. But the confession puts you into that place. So that's the perspective I'm trying to bring. But let me go a little deeper on this. A soul tie is very much strong in that whether it begins from a place of physical attachment, it can grow to a place of spiritual attachment. And this is why you need to deal with it. Even if I don't hear what's happening, but because the call is not dropped, if I listen, I can hear what's going on. So sometimes if people and all of a sudden they just start having things that they don't know what's going on. A soul tie is so strong with Lamini. Sometimes you'll have a physical pain because of it's projected from the other person. Right? How did that kind of telepathy happen? Mostly that thing happens because of a soul tie.
From the Bible, a soul tie.
Quite a few people, in fact. And I would say Elisha and Elijah had a soul tie.
Okay.
The most common expressed, of course, would be David and Jonathan. I mean, the soul tie was so strong that Labantu bathandana weka.
David and Jonathan.
Yeah, and it becomes very controversial. In fact, kube ngiphethe iBhayibheli bengothi ngifundeleni 2 Samuel 1:26. Yeah, ufunda noma ngesiZulu noma ngeEnglish. But you get an expression ukuthi the soul tie between these two men was so strong that they point to a strong soul tie they know. Waweza umuntu ekhuluma athi umufuna ukubona indoda ukuthi njani thinta umfazi wayo. Noma ngakuthi ikholwa kanjani noma ngabe ithule kanjani ungathi umfazi wayo. Why is it so? Why is it so? Why is it ukuthi it's exactly it becomes too personal. But a soul tie is so serious. In fact, Lily versus let develop between Jonathan and David. Yenza nabanye abantu bezababona ngazuthi la madoda lawa ngabe bekathandana ubulili obufanayo. Uyayizwa yona.
Kodwa manje phela uDavid nje liyachaza iBhayibheli ukuthi amakhosikazi amaningi ama-concubines kuyinqwaba nje.
Angeke ngiphendule wethabede to go that far. Because when you talk about 2 Samuel 1, verse 26, I'm going to say something here that you will need to note. It's in this line, but not exactly in this line. David is the son of Jesse.
Yeah.
Jesse, the son.
2 Samuel.
Chapter 1, verse 26. David is the son of Jesse. Jesse, the son of Obed. Obed, the son of Boaz. With who? With Ruth.
Yeah.
And who is Ruth? Ruth is the daughter of Moab.
Yeah.
Who is Moab? Moab is the son of Lot and his daughter.
No, the verse. No, the verse. No. I
said for doing it.
No, I'm full. That's to show the verse. I get food.
I'll put it a little bit. What do I tell them is Zulu, man?
It's Zulu.
I want food a little bit.
Lithi ngidabukile ngawe mfowethu Jonathan.
Yeah.
Wawumnandi kakhulu kimi. Lalu isimangaliso kimi uthando lwakho. Ludlula uthando lwabesifazane.
Umtavovo lana. No.
Kwenzakalani ba?
It's hard to translation. No umtavovo.
Mhlamba awuzame lo English engathi.
Hayi sekusaba lokufunda lesibisi.
Mhlawumbe kudinga incwadi lezi spiritual context mhlawumbe. Lezi scripture mhlawumbe ezokudala.
Athi bisu Kevin ngena la khona. Hayi sithi kuzosichazela le base lama taxi.
Siyabazi phela uDavid.
uDavid esimazi kakhulu osisi asimazi. Look, Mathax. Nalo lesingisi.
Nala lifundeke.
Hayi angifundi into nje. Angishumayela ngento engajayela ikhona ukuthi ukuthini.
Little lesingisi, I grieve for you, Jonathan, my brother. You are very dear to me. Your love for me was wonderful, more wonderful than that of women.
Yeah. Now, you want to ask yourself, why would David make this expression?
But the soul tie injured, I understand. This soul tie, what soul tie was this? Jonathan,
What kind of a soul tie will transfer one's inheritance to another? Because the soul tie that happened, phela lento iqale ku 1 Samuel 18 verse 1. It when David had ended speaking, asifunde na. Samuel uqala chapter 18 verse 1.
No, this is Powerhour. No, this is out. First was Samuel.
Yeah, 1 Samuel 18 verse 1.
1 Samuel chapter 18.
Yeah, verse 1. This is the first time Jonathan...
After David had finished talking with Saul,
yes,
Jonathan became one in spirit with David.
Well,
and he loved him as himself.
Oh, well.
No, from that day, Saul kept David with him, and he did not let him return home to his family. No. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe. and he gave it to David.
Yeah.
Along with his tunic.
Cishe ngakubuza ukuthi wayesala embetheni kodwa qhubeka.
Hayi Mathabela. Along with his tunic and even his sword.
Yes.
His bow and his belt.
Yeah. Now, uma ngabe uthanda ukuba spiritual ke liyasho ukuthi his spirit. So this was a spiritual soul tie. And then you ask yourself, ukuthi, what happened? What did it cause? Brought a covenant. Okay? And what did this covenant do? It made a switch. Which means Jonathan took off all his clothes and gave to David. So automatically Jonathan was not afraid to be naked in the presence of David. And David did not see shame in the presence of Jonathan.
Yeah,
you understand? Basically, and he took his sword. Now, I'm going to look from a spiritual typology, what the sword means for. You see, the sword is both to defend and it's both to take over. You use it for war, so you use it to conquer and you use it to defend and protect. And he gave his shield also. Basically, Jonathan transferred to David, because of the spiritual sword tie, all that he was.
His inheritance.
And Jonathan never became king.
Yeah.
He never envied the throne. In fact, Jonathan celebrated that David sat on the throne.
David, yes.
But he was heir to the throne.
That's all because of a soul tie.
Soul tie is too powerful. In fact, a soul tie is so powerful because a person, for example, can have a soul tie with their spiritual leader. You experience something powerful through another person and your soul ties to them.
Can we call it impartation a soul tie?
No. I'm not talking about an impartation. But yes, an impartation can cause a soul tie. An impartation can cause a soul tie. For example, if you experience in faith mission,
yeah.
So yonke into many ikhuluma izofaka ungithi phakathi. Because most of the people that preach to you probably had some form of soul tie to ungiti. There was a certain spiritual encounter. Yazi soul tie uma seyikushayile umuntu uvela ufuna ukufana naye, ufuna ukukhulumisa kwakhe, ufuna ukuhambisa kwakhe, ufuna i-character yalomuntu iba i-character yakho. Maye ngene ngampela i-soul tie ngisho ukhuleka ngaze ngide kukhuleka udlameni kanti kukhuleka uThabela, because there's a soul tie that happens. It's a spiritual soul tie. This thing is so powerful, it made Elisha, a man who is in the agricultural business, wafike wamthinta ngengubo yakhe. Kube kwakungumZulu besoda wamthakatha, wamlumba ngale ngubo wayephethe. But wayephethe isambatho sakhe.
Mantle.
Wayesigqoka. What is a mantle? What is a mantle? A mantle is someone's clothes, basically. And uma ngabe wazi into yomuntu iyathathwa ngeimpahla zakhe, kodwa ngifuna ukungena kakhulu lapho. Wathi nesikhulela la vele nje kufika ugiven la axabane nami ukuthi manje sekwenze njani. Yabo phinde siqale phase inkulu wami odlamini azosilwisa kancane ukukhuluma ngesoul tie. Kwamanje nje ngisamlindile ugiven. Uzobuya ugobhoza khuluma nonsense la. Now
no, but usuke bring akithi
usulethe ibalance.
Yeah, azolethe ibalance yakhe.
Yabo nje mina ngiyakutshela ngizomlanda azokhuluma ngale wadovithi.
Yeah.
I'm not happy.
There's any aspects.
No, I'm not happy.
Oh, let me ask you a question.
Look, I've seen this verse, but I always skip it. I'll be honest.
You always skip. Okay, let me go this way. What happened to Elisha when the man put his cloak on him? And then asuka hamba. Atlona, hey, ngiyacela baba, ngicela ukuthi ungilinde. Ngiphindele ekhaya ngiyovalelisa. Utona ngikwenzeni? Ngikwenzeni? In this encounter, khona into eyenzeka kuEliya. Engenzekanga kuElijah. Uyangizwa mos? Elijah waba umenzi wento. uElisha waba umenziwa ukuthi wathintwa into ethile eyamthinta. Yamnamathekisa umphefumulo wakhe. Uyazi ukuthi uEliya waphindela ekhaya, wahlaba lezi inkabi kade lima ngazo, wathatha amajoke wabasa umlilo, wathi umphakathi awudle, waflathela ekhaya wangaphinde wabuya ekhaya. Now umulandelo Elisha, he was someone important in his family. Wayothela amanzi athelela uElijah. Niyazi isho ukuthi lento ethiwa imthela amanzi.
Yeah, wayisho ukuthini?
Isho kona ukuthi mangabe ezogeza ulo wayemthelela amanzi. Uma ngabe azotoiletha uyena ozoletha ibowl. Uyena ozokhipha ibowl. So you understand that kind of service from umuntu who comes from, should we say, a privileged family, deserting everything and following this guy who does not even have one stable home, who is moving from place to place, who does not have a son or a wife that we know about. Awuyicabange le situation wedlamini sekuyafika kuthola bakuhlala umprofeti uneymanga lo baba kodwa khona enye insizwa wahlala nayo emlandela noma ikuphi la yakho uphekelwa iyona washelwa iyona wenza some things we look at a distance and we tend to skip it because it looks a bit unchristian, but there was a spiritual soul tie between the two. And it was one of the reasons that Elisha received a double portion. Uthi, I want times 2 what you have. Uthi lo, when you see me go up, ukuphi uNkulunkulu lapho namavesi. Uthi uma ungibona ngishona phezulu lento izowehlela kuwe. Akambeki izandla. You see, but I agree with what you're saying. Uthi uMapostle Paul amekhuluma noTimothy, I long to come to you to this end that I may impart some spiritual gift to you, that you may be established. One of the most powerful things that we ignore is spiritual soul ties. Now uDlamini uyashumayela afake imali mhlambe wakhiwa isonto kodwa akaphumi efaith mission akazi nawo banjwe. And angisho ukuthi ngithakaphumi.
No, angina soul time.
Yeah. Bevese ngifuna ukuphoqa.
No, mina
you see.
Faith mission ihlelo ngoba ngiyathanda.
Amen. Asishe kanje. But
what soul time about Mathabela?
Cha, I don't want to go that route. The point that I'm just trying to drive to is that a soul tie can be created by spiritual experience. One of the things which makes you stay in your church, no matter what, is the spiritual experience that you have had in the church. And it ties your soul to the church. So you find it becomes difficult. Uyazi ukuthi umuntu kunzima ukushiya isonto lakhe. Ungazi ukuthi bamanipulateile kancha ukuthi konke enzeke kuye. You see, so soul ties are created by spiritual experience. Yabona? Mina nginabahlobo bami engaba nama spiritual experience now. Umuntu wangiletha enkosini mina is younger than me. But lo muntu wangiletha kuJesu wangibeka izandla ngagcwala ngomoya. Amncane kunami sifunda isikole. Indlela engimbuka ngayo mefika khona into engibuthanisa ngibe ingane phambi kwakhe. Because of what I experienced. That experience yenza ukuthi angimbuki njengomngane wami. Yayizi into engishoyo. Uma nginaye content engithobayo ngoba uNkulunkulu wangithinta esebenzisa yena. So this is a very important to understand that okay, this is why some people will follow some people. Uzunga understand ukuthi lo umlandelelani lo yana. Ufica ukuthi mhlambe Thabethe yonke into eshunywa uDlamini awuvumelani naye kodwa ukwazi uye kumlandela. Lokho because of the spiritual soul tie.
It basically is capturing.
It's capturing
the person ahlala noma engasathandi.
because it puts a force. You see, a spiritual soul tie makes you long for a person. It makes you long for the person. Lo muntu uzwa ngazi uyabona mangabe ufuna ukuyibona ukuthi isoul tie unayo noma awunayo. Uhlusuka esithubeni umqabanga lo muntu. Uhlusuka esithubeni.
Mathabela usho labantu abathi bamane inkingi sarcasm baqinisile konke njalo. Ukuthi uzofika kwena fika whatever untagcobe ngayo yena fika isakha ithathe. uNkulunkulu lapho futhi ngitshotshwe into enjalo. Ikhona leyo nto.
You're asking me a simple question but a complicated question.
Yeah.
I will ask it in reverse. Did Jacob steal Esau's blessing? If he did, what were the events that led to the taking of that blessing? Kwaphekwa ukudla, kuphekwa uRebecca, okuyonikezwa ubani? uIsaka angithi.
Yeah.
So lo baba wadla kuzazokhipha ini. This thing sounds like idliso lezulu. But anyway, angiqondile la.
But in that instance angithi ubaba wayezodedela the blessing.
Yes.
And he had not released it as yet.
Yes.
Ukuntshontsheka lapha kwenzeka kulento ukuthi lo wafika kuqala ubaba waseyadedela.
So phela uyazi uprove ukuthi yentshontshe.
That's what I'm saying.
That's why
Wafika
that's why ngasamphendula.
Yeah.
That's why I disconnected.
Yeah.
Uthi mayikwazi ukutshontsha. Lo muye eqonda ukunika omunye kodwa kufika omunye uthi
Mina labe ngifuna ukuya khona ngifuna ukubuza ukuthi ukuthi sikuwena
kanjani.
Kahle ukuthi ubaba wayirelease
Yeah.
phezulu kaJakobe.
If usama ukusho ubaba Mathabela kwafanele kamiyeke lo mfana emtshontsheni then bese thola intombi ezoyilala nalo That's the only thing. Then very simple blue patch song. Very.
You know, I'll tell you what. These are when you come to things like Soultie is not necessarily a Christian doctrine. So some people bazofundisa against it, but there's no such thing as a Soultie. So I understand in my perspective about. But when you look at something also, look at the impact of the thing. You know. And then you start looking with okay, njengoba kukanje yini into enze lokho asengibekise nje kukhona izinto zaseBhayibhelini ezinye esithatha kalula, you know, esime sithathe kalula zigcine zicreate ama problems, and the patriarchs are not very different from us. uEsau kwantshontsha impahla yakhe okusho ukuthi ungaqala ulahlelwe impahla ungazi ukuthi yapi. Uboqaphela lo uthini uIsaka mekezombusisa. Ukhumbule ukuthi le nsizwa le uIsau yayihlala ihamba njalo yozingela ibiya nenyama. Kodwa ngalolu suku kumele ukuthi azothola isibusiso. Wazingela wangathola lutho. Lento ifana nokuvalwa lento. Awuma ngahlukumeza. Awuma ngahlukumeza.
Ayabo manje ngakuthuka manje. Uyobe nawe wantshontsha lo
uyazi ukuthi kwesinye isikhathi malandela uma ngabe siba iqiniso kwesinye isikhathi likushaya linako ukuthi likuthuse liqobe.
Yeah.
Uyayizwa into ngisho.
Yeah.
La kwapheka ukudla ukuthi ubaba kadla.
Yeah.
Uma sekupheka ukudla kwakhona omunye ohlaba imbuzi.
Yeah.
Wagcoka iphandla. Njoba afake lezi iphandla nje uyontshontsha into yomunye umuntu. Wathi mekusuka lapho wantshontsha impahla yomunye umuntu. Usuyahamba uyakubaba uthi ubaba mekezwa iphunga lengubo kaIsaka uthi the smell of my son, the smell of the field,
yeah,
which the Lord has blessed. Uyezwa ukuthi iphimbo akulona uthi the voices of Jacob. Kodwa iphunga lamengama ubaba. Wathi sondela mfana wami wathi makathi uyambamba wafica kusobamba kuneziphandla. Njengoba nje
upossible ukuthi ubaba wakhe wayebona ukuthi unika, in fact I possible wamnika taxi.
Angizoshiya kanjani nje. Kodwa wayethi yena ubusisa uzubone ukuthi into spiritual iyathatha. Uthi meke fika uEsau. Uthi hayi baba akunankinga kusumbusise ngibusise nami. Uthi mfana wami uthethe konke. Imfuyo isegcekeni, imali isele la ekhaya. So Jacob took what was spiritual and left that which was physical.
Bishop Mathabela, ngifisa mina ukwazi ukuthi lama spiritual ties esikhuluma ngawo,
yeah,
nalama scenarios esenza ama examples ngawo, azwakala ngathi kodwa affecta thina kakhulu as Africans. Is it the same for other races? And
you know, it's very much the same for all races. Yeah, ukuthi thina sizwa ngazo ukuthi ku affect abantu abamnyama because exposure yethu is to black people. For example, witchcraft is everywhere, among the whites, among the blacks, among all people. Noma ungayi China ikhona witchcraft. But awucabanga ukuthi khona ukuthakathi khona ngoba wazi la eAfrica ukuthakathi bukhona yonke indawo. Ukuthontshela kweinto zabantu ku everywhere. I mean, it's right here in front of us, happening in the Bible. Kukhona izinto yazi ezingama should I say, spiritual principles, which are not necessarily straight doctrine. Uyayizwa msethi. And ngihlaze nginenkinga mase ngifika entweni enje ngoba yiyona into engixabanisa nogobhosi. Uyayizwa. Let me make a very good example for you. Hey, this will be hard. No mhlamba ngiyiyeke.
No yisho Powerhour.
Ngoba lena
Kuningi osukushilo.
Oh, okay.
Asengibekisishilo manje ayiseke into ewest.
Asengibekise kanje. uNkulunkulu utshela uIsrayeli ukuthi lonke izwe eniyahamba kulona nizolidla libe yelele. Ubatshela ukuthi ubapha isithembiso. Kodwa uma ufunda u2 Kings chapter 3, I think uya laphana ku verses 28 or 38.
Yeah.
Likhuluma ngenkosi yaseMoab. uMoab unyazi ukuthi uzalwa uLot indodakazi.
Yes.
Ucabanga ukuthi uLot wayehleli nobani? Wayehleli noAbraham. Kakhulu. Kodwa mdlamana aphuma eSodom neGomora, amadodakazi akhe ashiya ukudla shaya yonke into kodwa aphatha utshwala. Ngoba phela kwabe basemgedeni. Umama wathi kwaba isithuli sikaSawoli. Kodwa bebefika emgedeni kwaphuma isavana noma kwaphuma. Futhi ke ngikhulume kakhulu nokuthi yini into eyenza uLot, umuntu okhishwe ingelosi. Akabuza utshwala emlonyeni kodwa ke angifuni ukuya lapho.
Mina khuluma ngicela ukutshela nje yona nje just in passing. The reason uthi ngixola no mfundisi uGavin ama-analogy akhe mfundisi
angazi ngizochaza nje.
Yabona ukufaka isavana manje.
Okay, asengibekise nje. Okay, angeke indaba.
No, babephethe utshwala.
Bebaphethe utshwala. Shothi labantu baphuma beshesha. Kuna imvula yomlilo. Nibanjwe ingelosi. Ngesandla ithi ingelosi iphumana. Kodwa ukukhumbula ukuthi awuthi ngidonse lo Bisminoff. Ngifuna ukuthi mina ngifuna ukuthi engenzeka ukuthi into aniyiboni. You see, and lento yokuthi
baphuma neplug, that's the
baphuma neplug. Futhi uma ngabe umdala ngeke ngithi kuphuzisa amanzi ungezwa athi iplug le.
Yeah.
Okusho ukuthi nayo uLot wayithanda iplug.
Wayefuna ukuphuza la.
Wayijwayele ngoba bamnikeza iplug wangakhonona. Inkinga ukuthi wathi bese plugile. Base bamenze
Yeah.
You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so the Bible says that for 14 generations these people shall not enter the temple, which is why usufunda uMateyu sokhuluma ngoJesu 14 generations. Why?